kinds of people. And as I do, you can kind of see which profile you might fit into, if that's the right way to say it. And it's like a spectrum, really. Down one end of the spectrum is the individual, the person who is probably a bit monkish, it kind of likes to be on their own, and they have a kind of resistance to other people. And so they've made a very conscious decision to be isolated and to be away from people. Probably there's a little bit of the Jean-Paul Sartre in their consciousness. I don't know if you remember the famous quote from Sartre was, "Hell is other people." And so they've decided to take themselves away from society and hide away in a monastery or some place of isolation. So they've got this resistance to relationship and to being with other people and meeting other people and interacting with other people. And a little bit further up the spectrum is the second person, and there is what I would call cool and contained. So they're the kind of person who's quite happy being alone, but also quite happy interacting with others. They don't avoid people, and they don't avoid being alone. They kind of take life as it comes, and they're able to be comfortable being on their own wherever they are, and if circumstances and the time of their life or whatever brings them to be in a kind of alone setting, they're quite comfortable with that. And when they interact with other people, they're also quite comfortable doing that. So they're kind of cool and contained. They're kind of self-contained, I think. And the third person is what you might call the yo-yo person. And they're kind of in and out of interacting with others, in and out of relationship. 1 minute they're kind of screaming with, "Oh, I've got to get away from these people. I can't stand that person anymore. And I just need to be alone. I need my own space." They do the kind of the Greta Garbo sketch, I need to be alone. But as soon as they are on their own, as soon as they become alone, it's not long before they feel they need to have interaction with people. And so they go rushing back into relationship, if you like. So that's the third person. They're kind of yo-yoing in and out of, as soon as they become alone, they become uncomfortable. And then as soon as they get into a relationship too much, too intensely, they become uncomfortable with that. So they're bouncing backwards and forwards. And then the fourth person, the fourth in the spectrum along this end of the spectrum, would be the individual who's what I would call AD. And they're kind of addicted and dependent on other people. So they're kind of needy. They kind of need to connect with other people all the time. It's very difficult for them, if not impossible, to be on their own. They're kind of addicted to company, to the stimulation of either other people directly or to some kind of electronic projection of other people. And we all know what our electronic projections are now, the screens that surround us, basically. And that's where they get their hit, their stimulation, their feeling that they're in relationship to someone. And so they're kind of addicted and dependent on others. So being alone for them is very, very uncomfortable. So this is the spectrum. These are the kind of four types that I'd like to kind of play with in our conversation this afternoon. And as I said earlier, I do hope that you start sort of generating some questions. And I think there's a chat board there. You can type your questions up, and then we'll get into the exploration of your particular issues a little bit later on. So the main question is why do we become so addicted? Why do we always need the stimulation, the connection to other people in our lives? And very often people up at this end of the spectrum, that kind of person, they say, well, it's kind of unnatural to be alone. It's just not in my nature. And anyway, aren't we social beings? Aren't we meant to be socially interactive with each other all the time? Isn't that what life is all about? And in a sense, that's probably quite true. But then I wonder if socially being with others has gone too far on its own, where we're not so much social beings, but we're dependent beings. And you kind of see this. I mean, every kind of Saturday afternoon, if you go to the sports fixture, match, rugby, football, or whatever, and you see crowds of people, and in a sense, they're very dependent on each other. They're very dependent on their emotional state on others. They're very dependent even on who I think I am in that gathering with others. And so they become dependent beings as opposed to just social beings. And if you watch them, if they don't get their fix of being in the crowd, spectating the sport, then they get grumpy, they get upset, they get sensitive, and sometimes they even become a bit depressed. And even in our relationships with each other, our intimate relationships, you see this kind of, maybe at a lesser scale, this dependency creeping in. Maybe the relationship starts off where one is more dependent on the other, or maybe it started as a kind of codependency. They're both dependent on each other, so they're socializing. There's no problem there, but there's a dependency from one side of the relationship or from both sides of the relationship, and that dependency in whatever relationship is bound to create some kind of anxiety. Because another word for dependency is this idea of attachment. And when you become attached, attachment and dependency, they kind of come together. When you become attached to anything or anyone, then there's bound to be some level of fear of loss of what you're dependent on. And that's what anxiety is, really. It's a form of fear. It's one of the faces of fear. And this is why they say that just about every human being at some stage in their life will be living with this background anxiety that they've just learned to tolerate and they've kind of learned to manage. And so the way to assuage that anxiety, to bring it to rest, if you like, within our consciousness, is to be stimulated from something on the outside. And that's what we do. We kind of look outside of ourselves for some kind of distraction or stimulation, or something to get attached to, something that will help us to relieve the suffering of that anxiety. Yeah, I think I'm just hearing a few noises, so I'll kind of keep going. So then the next question for me was, well, why do we become attached? Why do we become dependent on others in the first place? What's the root cause of this? Where is this coming from? And I think it all kind of begins when we're very young, and for each one of us, there's kind of three stages. Stage number one is the moment we're kind of born. And when we're born, it's like we're naturally feeling within ourselves. We're feeling our natural selves. We're being our natural selves. There's been no conditioning and no programming. But we're born into an environment whereby coming at us all the time are other people's energies. And mostly other people's energies around us are not very positive. They're not very life-affirming. They're not affirming our well-being. They're not affirming our sense of who we are in a true sense. Those energies would be mostly emotional energies, the stress of others, their irritations, their fears, their upsetness, if you like. And as those energies come at us in this very young and innocent stage, what we have to do, we don't think about doing it, we're just kind of doing it, is we have to go into reactive mode to possibly defend ourselves against, to deal with those, to respond to those energies in some way or other. And that's where our sense of insecurity has its origins, I sense. And some schools of thought even say that this is where our personality begins to take shape. Because as we respond to these kind of not life-affirming energies coming at us all the time from mostly other people, big people, then it's how we respond, the responses, the reactions that we create that become the seeds of the kind of personality we will then go on to develop. Hence the reason for so many retrospective therapies in the world, who will take you back to these early days where you can recall and heal these particular modes of behavior which will stunt us, will be detrimental to us in later life. So I think we all kind of begin with this loss of our own sense of security. We don't feel secure in the world. And that kind of leads on to the next stage, which I think we're all kind of familiar with, especially if we've had a family or we can remember when we were this young, which is the comfort blanket stage. It's where we find an object or a person or a relationship whereby we grab on and we hold on, and they or it, the object, becomes what's metaphorically known as our comfort blanket. And this is what gives us at least a few moments of I feel secure, I feel okay, I feel stable, there's some consistency in my life. And so it's like a natural stage, what we would call a natural stage, that when we see children holding on to something, then this is their comfort blanket. But then as we grow up, as we become socialized, that's when we learn to really go outside of ourselves to find our sense of security, to find our sense of okayness, to find our sense of well-being. We learn to go outside. We're taught to go outside, in fact, by those big people called parents and teachers and so on. So we start searching in money and wealth and fame and position in other people. We start looking for that stability, that security, that sense of security, which we kind of remember way back. It's deep memory in our consciousness, and we're kind of searching for that, but we're searching in the wrong direction. We're trying to go out to get it. And so as we go out to try and get it, and we are stimulated by the world around us, and of course there are moments when perhaps our parents or a teacher or a friend, when they do give us moments of unconditional love and caring and stability, and these are moments when we do feel secure with something or someone outside of ourselves, and so that kind of encourages us to look further, to look more, to search more on the outside for this sense of security on the inside. Unfortunately, of course, those moments when parents can give us those experiences of unconditional love, they become shorter and less frequent as we kind of grow up, as we put on our trousers or whatever, as we become more like adults. And so ultimately, we become kind of, as a result of this external search, we become addicted and dependent on some kind of external, and the primary external is a relationship with one or a group of other people. We become addicted to those things because subconsciously we believe that it's only by belonging to that group or having that person in my life is going to give me this feeling of security. And of course, we all, I would imagine, we're all now familiar with the great paradox in life is that if you search for your happiness on the outside, you're guaranteed to make yourself unhappy. Or if you look for your sense of security in anything that you are not, which is everything around you, then you are guaranteed to make yourself feel insecure. And the reason for that is so simple, is that everything around us is in a constant process of change. It's not stable. It's going to be unpredictable. It's uncontrollable. People are uncontrollable. And so even the other persons inner world is changing, their moods, their behaviors, their intentions, their desires, the way they look at us, that's also constantly changing. So if we look for our sense of security outside, we're not going to find it, but that's what we've learned to do. And that's where we become both addicted and dependent. Because when you become attached to anything on the outside, you use what you're attached to, dependent upon, you use that to build your sense of self on the inside. And it's not a new idea, it's a very old idea. This is where our ego comes from, and ego being a false sense of who I am. So if I get attached to anything or anyone on the outside, I use the idea, the image of that person on the inside, in my consciousness, in my own mind, I use that to build my sense of who I am. And that's where the illusion begins. But I have to keep doing that to find some kind of stability, security in myself, which I can never really find. And that's why the ego, this false sense of self, is constantly shifting, constantly moving. And if I try and keep preserving it, then I'm only going to create more insecurity, unhappiness for myself. So in many ways, happiness and security, they kind of come together. They're kind of brother and sister. If you ever notice that when you're happy, you feel very secure inside. You don't even give security a second thought. You feel quite stable. But as soon as the happiness disappears, you begin to feel kind of insecure and antsy and start searching, start looking for some kind of stimulation. So that leads us to the next question. How do I free myself from this stimulation, this addiction, this dependency on whatever it is that or whoever it is that I've become dependent upon on the outside? How do I come back to this kind of cool and contained individual who's quite happy being on their own, not being stimulated by anything on the one hand, and being quite cool as wherever situation they're in, at the same time being quite easy in how they interact with others, which kind of means they don't want anything from others. There's not this neediness from others. How do I make this transition from down this end of the spectrum to this end of the spectrum? This is the question. And I kind of sense that everyone essentially has to make this transition at some stage. Normally, most people wait until the addiction, the dependency becomes so kind of serious, so much a source of suffering, if you like, of unhappiness, of stress down at this end. It's like they have to hit their brick wall before they'll do anything about it, before they'll stop and say, wait a minute, I really am unhappy. I really am stressed. I really am in a state of suffering all the time. I can't stand this anymore. What's happening? And most people, they wait. They'll tolerate. They'll put up with these feelings, if you like, for as long as possible. And then, of course, they have to come down. They have to make this shift. And you're looking at one of the people who's been through that process from A to B. I waited for my brick wall moment before it stopped me and said, wait a minute, this is not working. My life is not working. I'm not happy. I'm grumpy all the time, and I don't feel secure in myself, and I don't know how to relate to others very well. And so all of those things, they kind of add up together and they stop you in your tracks. And then you have to come down here and you have to kind of look in a different direction. And that direction essentially is the inside. I've spent my life going outside myself, looking for what I believe I need to find out there. And so suddenly I'm forced to look inside, to stop and look inside. And in retrospect, as I look back now, I can see that there's two main practices, two things that I have to do in order to make this gradual shift out of addiction and dependency on others, on the world out there, my addiction to the world, stimulations of the world. There's two main practices which will bring me back to this kind of cool and contained state of my own being, where I don't need anything or anyone outside. It's not that I don't interact with people, it's just that I'm not needy of other people. And so those two practices are meditation and contemplation. Again, nothing new. They're ancient practices. You find them mostly on the eastern part of the world, but they've been practiced for 2,000 years. And so meditation, the simplest definition of meditation, is the cultivation of self-awareness. And this is what I've been lacking up at this end of the spectrum, is this awareness of what's going on within myself, within my own consciousness. Yeah, and so the practice of meditation takes me down various levels of self-awareness. And so the more you meditate, the deeper you become in terms of your awareness of yourself. So I just disappeared from the screen, and Fran Groves has started screen sharing. Okay, we're back. It's good. I love talking to one audience, and that one audience of one is myself. I always knew that whenever I gave a talk, I was talking to myself. And now here's the proof of it. And so in meditation, the first step is to become aware of myself. And self-awareness leads to something called self-understanding. So the more you practice meditation, the more aware you become of yourself. The first thing you do is you begin to understand why you're thinking what you're thinking, where your feelings are coming from, why you're always going out and seeking and wanting and needing something from others. You begin to see that for real within yourself. And for some people, this is not a pretty sight. Oh, I didn't realize I was so dependent. I didn't realize I was so needy of the stimulation of the company of another. I didn't realize I was so fearful. There was so much fear in here, and especially of being alone, of being on my, I didn't realize it was here. So you begin to see those movements of your energy, of your consciousness. So you start to slowly but surely understand that, well, that understanding then leads to something called self-responsibility. And you begin to realize that actually there's no one else who's responsible for how you feel. And this is the second fatal lesson that we kind of learn as we are growing up. And it's not an easy lesson to grasp or to realize for yourself. As we were growing up, we were taught to look outside for our sense of security, for our happiness in life. But we were also taught, in parallel to that, very closely connected to that, is that other people and situations and circumstances are responsible for how I feel. So as you meditate and you become more aware of yourself, there's a moment, and I can only talk about it, I can give you the information of it, but it won't make any difference until you see for yourself. And that moment arises when you go, aha, now I get it. It's me that's generating the feelings of fear, anxiety, worry, blame, criticism, and so on. It's me that's creating that. And the creation of that is beginning within me. And if you want to use another word for me, you want to use the word consciousness or being or self or soul or I. It doesn't really matter the word you use, but it's originating within me, not within my heart, my physical heart, but in the heart of my being. That's where it's arising from. That's where I'm allowing it to come from. That's where I'm creating it from. So as you meditate, as you become more self-aware, and that's really all you're doing, is you're just deepening your awareness all the time. That's why it's good to keep going all the time, because that awareness is depthless. It's kind of infinite in a sense. So you go from self-understanding to self-responsibility, and then you realize, hey, mastery. What is mastery? Self-mastery is not me controlling me, but is me having found the ground of my being. Yeah, and the ground of our being is well, if you ask most meditators, it's actually in the physical world out there, the ground that we stand on is very solid. It's very real, as you might say. It's very solid. But the ground of being is actually where there's no solidity. It's a kind of emptiness. And once again, that's not a new idea. That's been around in the East for years. There's a kind of emptiness of your being. There's nothing there. And that ground is your peace. When you touch that ground with your awareness, you touch the ground outside with your feet, but when you touch this ground on the inside with your awareness, then it's still, it's silence. In other words, it's your peace, your peacefulness. And when you touch that ground, there's this big aha moment. This is my most natural state. This is me. C'est moi, as they say in France. C'est moi. And when you touch that natural ground, that's a ground that doesn't shift, doesn't change. It's always there. It's always accessible to me. Yeah, and so my sense of security, my sense of stability, my sense of who I really am is in that ground. It's grounded in that state of being. And that's why matured meditators, they're kind of moving into that state, in and out of that state all the time. And mastery is the ability to bring that state of being into your connections, your relationships, your journey, your actions, your behaviors through your life. And as you bring that ground, that stillness, that peace, that natural state of being, as you bring it into visible action, then it doesn't want to take anything. It's just an expression, a natural expression, pressing out, expression of yourself. And that's what we sometimes call love. Because whoever's on the end of that expression that's originating from the ground of your being, from prior to all those memories, all those programs and conditioning that's prior to all of that existing in yourself, when you bring that to the surface, then the person who's on the end of that, they feel, wow, this was lovely. That was lovely. I think you're lovely. And that's how they will respond to you. It's not that you need it. It's not that you want it. It's not that it's necessary for you in your life. It just kind of happens. And it's a natural event. So the process of getting from here to here is this very simple practice of kind of realizing that I've grown up believing that there's only one reality, and that's the reality of the world around us. That's what we learn. It's the realities of material. It's weather driven. It's always changing. It's always got other people in it, and so that's what we learn to believe, unfortunately. But what no one teaches us is that the primary reality is actually our own consciousness. Yes, it's always changing too. There's different thoughts and feelings and memories and experiences. That's all going on inside. But this is the primary reality. Another word for that reality is consciousness. And that's what I've been avoiding. That's what I've been running away from. That's what I've been kind of saying to myself, wow, whatever goes on in here doesn't really matter. What really matters, what's really important is my relationship with them, that I get some of this, that I have some of that I achieve this, and I got a bit of fame here, a bit of attention there. That's really what matters in life. And that's what we say is most important. But actually, none of that is ultimately that important. What's most important is that I get to understand myself. I get to realize myself. I get to realize I'm the one who's responsible. I get to realize the ground of my being, the very core of my being, is where my natural state is always present, always there. And so meditation is that's the methodology to get there. And in parallel to meditation, the second practice that needs to go along with that, in a sense, is some kind of contemplation. And when I use the word contemplation, I'm really kind of referring to, the wisdom of others, the wisdom of their journey, of how they've mapped the territory of their consciousness. They're a bit further down the road. They've got a deeper understanding of what goes on inside. So they give me clues. They give me signposts. They give me an idea of what's going on within me. But of course, as I contemplate, what they've said and what they've found and the signposts they put up, it's not enough just to contemplate. I have to go and see for myself. I have to go and see what they say, what they're referring to is true for me. And so that's where I start meditating, and I start, okay, oh yes, there is a very deep peace, and that's what that guy said in the book. It's what the guru said on the stage, is that your natural state is one of a very deep and abiding peace. And it's very solid, and it's unchanging, and it's always there. But of course, I hear the words, I might create the belief, but until I go in and taste, touch, see for myself, then it won't make any difference. And so that is essentially the two main practices. This idea of, yes, consuming from outside in the ideas, the maps of others, but also spending time in myself, going within myself and deepening my own self-awareness. And when I deepen my self-awareness, then I'm gradually moving down this spectrum from this needy, addicted, dependent person for stimulation on the outside. I'm coming back to actually being quite okay on the inside, because now I realize everything I need is already here. Sure, I need the farmer, and I need the supermarket, and I need the shops or whatever. I need those external things to look after my physical form, no problem there. But from an emotional style, from a mental, from a feeling point of view, I don't need anything to come from outside in. I need to bring everything from inside out, from within my consciousness. It's like one of the marks of the difference between consciousness and form. Form needs water, light, air. It needs energy put in to maintain its health. But to maintain your well-being, the wellness of your being, you need to give energy out. But of course, it has to be the accurate energy, the true energy, the energy, the true energy of you, the natural state of you. If it's not the natural state of you, then it's going to be an unnatural, it's going to be a distorted energy. It's going to be a grumpy or a fearful or irritated or upset energy. And as soon as you throw that out of the context of your relationships, you start feeling guilty. No, did I really say that? Did I really do that? Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that. Because you kind of know intuitively that was the wrong kind of energy to throw out into the context of your relationships. But when you give out the right kind of, the accurate, the energy that arises from your true nature, when you are loving towards others, without thinking, oh, I was loving towards someone, without thinking that, when it's just a natural thing, when you're compassionate and it's a natural thing, when you're empathic and it's a natural thing to do, then notice you feel really cool, man. I mean, you're not thinking that, you're just feeling that, and you feel really solid within yourself. And then it doesn't matter what goes on or what people say or what people are doing on the outside, because you know your deepest, richest, most powerful resource is on the inside, and it's always there. It's always accessible. And so you make this shift from gotta get more to, hey, I'm okay, I'm all right, whatever's going on, wherever I am, I'm okay within myself. And so you've made the shift back to being cool and being self-contained. And that's not that you don't relate and interact with people. Yeah, it's easy, that's natural, but you're okay if you don't have to, if you're not. And so this is the shift. So up here, it's very easy to be lonely. It's very easy to, because as soon as you're on your own and you're not getting your stimulation, it's like taking drugs from a drug addict. You get antsy. People get antsy. Oh, I've got to talk to someone. I've got to interact. I've got to gossip about something. I've got to share. What's going on? Why didn't you say? Why don't you give me more time, more energy? And so up here, I'm very antsy, very agitated. Whereas here, it's okay, no problem. But to get here, I need to do the inner work. I need to rediscover, if you like, and recover what's already there within me as the conscious being. So I want to stop here now and just see if there's any questions. And I'm sure that, well, actually, there's 142 questions. Do I guess that I just kind of have a look and
No,
and
Mike,
there they
hi.
are. Yeah,
Hi. You know, if you look through all the chat, is it's a
yeah.
lot of chat.
There's a lot of chat. There should be
But
a
I,
question.
yeah, but I have been noting the questions. But
Okay.
at
Yeah,
what
what
point
are-
would you like to do the meditation? Would
Oh,
you
at
like?
the end. Do it at the end. Finish with the meditation at the end. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay. So yeah, I've been noting the questions in between the chats.
Okay.
So one of the questions, let's start from the beginning. So one of the questions is, how can we manage avoiding certain types of people whom we don't like to be with?
Um,
How can we manage
yeah,
avoiding?
no, I got the question. Thank you. It's not the person that you don't like to be with. It's your version of the person that you've decided that you don't like. You know when you criticize or you blame or you judge someone, it's not the actual person that you're judging or you're blaming or you're criticizing. It's your version. And your version is your creation of that person, and you create them within your consciousness. And so there's something about them that you're creating within you, and your creation is primarily a reflection of you. So you're going to invest in them. In other words, you're going to filter them through your own sense of who you are. And so first I have to look within myself. What is it that I'm creating within them that I don't like? In other words, if you see a fault in them, if you think there's something wrong with them, then it's really something that's a fault in you. You know, there's an old saying, is what you spot is what you've got. Yeah. So if you see something you don't like in them, then there's something you don't like within yourself. So first of all, I have to work on myself. This is where your cultivation of self-awareness comes in. I have to look underneath that and to see what is it that I have within myself. And it's usually a belief about myself, because you've decided you believe something about them, you believe they're naughty or nasty or dark in some way, and so there's a darkness within myself, and so I need to look at that and work on that, shine the light of self-awareness into that darkness first within myself. Now, as soon as you do that, then it's not difficult to interact with them. Now, that's the first answer. The second answer is that if you're having trouble interacting with someone, is connecting with someone, then the one of the secrets is to sit quietly with them in your mind, and then just send them good wishes. And if it's good wishes not enough, then just send them a form of respect. You know, see if you can see for yourself their value and their worth as a human being. This is what respect is. It's to affirm the worth and the value of the other human being. Try doing that in your consciousness first, quietly in a corner somewhere, maybe a part of your meditation. And what you'll notice is that your creation of them begins to change, because you're putting the light of your consciousness into the image of them. And so their image, their idea of them in your consciousness will transform. Now, as you're doing that, they're also picking up that energy. And this is where we're all kind of connected at a higher level. It's a level where we don't see, we're not aware of it, but it's there, that connection is there. So they'll pick up that energy. So the next time you interact with them, you'll find it's much easier. Maybe it's not perfect, it's not just instantly going to work, but it's going to be much easier. And so this is how you heal a relationship. And the third answer to your question, and then I'll finish, is that, you know, if you find someone in your life you don't like very much, then just remember they're your teacher. You don't tell them that. Don't walk up to them and say, "Oh, yeah, I don't like you at all, but I guess you're my teacher." You don't say that, but that's how you're going to use that relationship. What are they teaching me about me? What are they teaching me that I need to change within myself? Yeah, because the other person is never the problem. You might want to write that down. Maybe that's not such good news. The other person is never the problem. That won't be good news for someone that you're living with that you've decided you don't now like very much. And that happens a lot in relationships, is that the other person is always me. Sorry about the length of the answer. Next question. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe you want to be brief because there's quite
Yeah.
a few.
Okay.
How to get rid of addiction?
You know, to be free of any addiction, there's got to be a period of cold turkey in a sense. And you know, whether it's a physical addiction, and that's what you see addicts, and you know, the pop star is addicted to the applause, and so when the applause dies down, they get very anxious. When they addict to the substance, so if you take the substance away, they have to go through a period of cold turkey. And so when you're addicted to the stimulation, it might be of another person, then when they're not there for a while, then there's going to be kind of a discomfort, and that discomfort will either drive you towards them even more, or drive you towards looking for someone else to fill that space and satisfy your addiction, or it will drive you to, oh wait a minute, there's something I need to change within myself. And so it's like there's got to be a kind of little period, who knows how long, there's no length of time, you can't put a time on it, but there's going to be a period where you've realized, wait a minute, I'm addicted, it's time for me to get free of this. And from a spiritual point of view, from the point of view of your consciousness being addicted to the stimulation of another, then how to be free of that is the practice of a deepening of your awareness, because right now it's very superficial. It's wanting something at a superficial level in the world out there to stimulate me physically, and so that I kind of feel it in my consciousness. But now, wait a minute, now I go into my and now I bring out something deeper, something which is going to satisfy me from the inside out instead of being satisfied from outside in. And whatever you bring from inside out is not addictive. It's just your natural state. It won't cause an addiction, but it will set you free of your external addiction. Next question. Sorry.
Yeah, interesting question here. So if we are souls, but at the end of the day, everyone needs someone. What joy would there be in life if you had no one close to you? So yes, we are a soul on this earth, but we are human beings and we are social creatures.
Yeah.
No one should go through life alone.
Yes. No, I'm not saying that. I really hope, I probably need to say this at this stage, is that I hope you didn't interpret what I said as either, you know, you have to do this, you don't have to do that, this is right, this is wrong. This is very difficult to bring the information from a speaker into our consciousness and not polarize what they're saying is to wrong and then make it personal. Oh, I'm right then, I'm wrong, I'm not doing it right now, I'm not saying that. If you're feeling upset and anxious and lonely right now, this is okay. This is not right or wrong. It's just what you're feeling right now. Now, I didn't say, and maybe you've interpreted what I have said, is that you need to be on your own. This only works when you're not with anyone else. I didn't say that. Life is relationship. And relationship is an opportunity to do what we're here to do, which is to create the story of our life and to co-create that story with others. And so we are social beings. We're here to socialization, creativity. It's the same thing. But what I am saying is that our relationships in the context of socializing are not happy places for many people. And there are places where we fear not being in a relationship. And I'm saying that's because we've moved out of being social to being dependent. And we all know that being dependent on anyone is unhealthy. You know, the dependency means there's some kind of attachment. And when there's an attachment, it's not possible to relate well with that person, not possible to be loving towards that person, because there's always a fear of loss, a fear of damage of the relationship or the person going away. And so there's a holding on. And so this is not being social, this is being dependent. And that's what's happened for most of us. We've become dependent on others, needy of others. Someone's asking me last night, what is the one thing that you think sabotages relationship? And that's being needy in the relationship. So can I be in a relationship without being needy? Yeah, and that's going to require some time on your own, because when you sit and meditate, when you sit and go in and rediscover your inner resources, you're going to be on your own naturally. It's not that you're going to sit like that for the rest of your life. You're going to come in and out. You're going to act with people, interact with people, talk to people. Then you're going to go quietly to a corner and just, hold on a minute, now wait a minute, let me just refresh and rediscover who I am on the inside. So it's kind of in and out and in and out. This is breathing in and out of the physical body. It's the same. You breathe in, sitting alone, quietly, rediscovering, re-empowering yourself, and then you come out, you communicate, you interact, oh my God, I got upset again. Oh, come back in. I've got to reconnect with my inner power. And so it's in and out, in and out. So it's not a question of just being alone and not not being with anyone, but the healthiest relationship is a relationship where there's no neediness of the other. Sorry, another short answer.
This is to do with this is a child that comes out of the womb that has felt the sorrow and suffering of being in the womb.
Yeah.
And screen sharing off, please.
Yes.
Yeah. So when it comes out, then it's looking for support because it feels lonely.
Yes.
And so how do you mitigate this loneliness? I think the questioner is implying that stays with you for some time.
Well, it stays with you for the rest of your life, unless you kind of tolerate it and put up with it. I mean, when there's a sense of loneliness, it means there's an insecurity. There's a sense that the only way to assuage this loneliness is to be with another person or have the comfort, the security of something that is not me. Yeah, and so quite rightly, some children, souls, whatever, they're born possibly from this sense of loneliness that they carry from a previous lifetime, or it doesn't really matter, because when you're born into this world today, you are surrounded by an energy that is non-loving. It's like love is the key. It's not a new idea. Love is the key. When you say to someone, "I love you," I love the way you are, and sort of you're giving your love unconditionally, then you feel very secure. And when someone says to you or does something loving towards you, you feel very secure in yourself. Yeah. So love is another word for the highest level of security is a loving environment. So if we're born into this loving environment, then we feel naturally very secure in this environment. But most children are not. They're born into an environment, a set of relationships, basically, where people are stressed, they're upset, they're irritated, they're shouting at each other. And so they're throwing energy, if not directly at you, they're throwing it into the environment around you. And so it's a non-loving, it's a grumpy, irritated, anxious, fearful, upset, complaining, blaming, criticizing environment. It's just that energy around you. And you're not thinking about it, you're just picking up this energy having arrived. And so you have to do something to defend yourself against this energy, because it's unnatural. And even if you've come out feeling grumpy yourself, you still have to defend yourself against this energy around you. And so that sets up your reactive patterns in your consciousness. And so that sets up the creation of your particular personality according to your particular initial set of relationships. And so if you've come out in a very loving family, in a very loving environment, an unconditionally loving, safe, secure environment, you've been very, very lucky. This is why the therapy industry is having such a good time now, because people live the rest of their life with these mechanisms of defense, of dealing with whatever energy is coming at them at this very young age. And of course, not to mention how they're taught later on to search for their sense of security, for their love, if you like, from other people, from other situations. I love the chocolate. I love the coffee. I love that person. Oh, I love you so much. I love that movie. And these are not forms of love. They're forms of stimulation to which I become very attached. And so that is going to distort the energy of me from love into fear in some form or other. And so more insecurity. So it's challenging. Everyone is, I would say, I might be wrong, just about everyone has gone through this process. And that's why there's 500 odd people listening to this kind of material right now, because, hey, it's not clear how to live our lives. It's not easy. I'm feeling insecure with all this changing stuff around me because I can't find this unchanging stability on the inside.
That leads us nicely to the next question, which is how do you get, no, how, for someone struggling with self-love, how do we cultivate that?
Yes, that's a great question. Oh, well, let me just go straight into it. For me, and this is for me, and it might be difficult to see and to realize for most people, is it's not possible to love yourself. You know, and most people think self-love is standing in the mirror in the morning and going, or giving themselves a nice piece of cake, or taking themselves on a nice holiday. And I gave myself a gift because I love myself so much. This is attention of your consciousness on your body, on your physical form. Now, love is not physical. It's an energy of your consciousness, a vibration of your consciousness. It's a word that describes the highest vibration of consciousness. And you feel it, but not physically. You feel it, it's in the air. When you meet someone in that loving vibratory state, it's like, wow, it's just wonderful to be in the company of that person. They're giving off this energy, and you don't know what it is. And you can't see it, you can't touch it, but wow, you feel great because you resonate, your level of consciousness goes up with them. Now, the reason I say you can't love yourself is that implied in I love myself is there's a subject and an object. And so that means that I love myself. Now, which one's me, the I or the self? It's not possible because I'm not split. There's only one me. You know? And so when you give that gift to someone with love, where does the love come from? It comes from me. It doesn't come from the department store. The object is just a representation of that gift, of that energy, of that vibration, which is coming from you. So who feels it first on the way out? As you give it, you feel it. So what is love? I am love. And when you're giving the gift with love and feeling that love, the last thing you're thinking of, oh, I need to give this to me a bit more. No, you're not thinking that at all. You just are being love. And so you can't know love truly until you give it away. And it's a brilliant design, you could say, of consciousness, whoever designed consciousness. It's a brilliant piece of design, is that you cannot know your highest state of consciousness until you use it in the context of relationship and give it away. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, and that's what most people find the hardest thing to do, especially with that person I've decided I don't like them very much. Oh no, I don't like them. Then they're distorting, they're bringing their vibration down in that context. And then they're wondering, oh, I don't like them. And of course, if you don't like a person, they don't like you. And so no one loves me. And so, well, if no one loves me, maybe I should give some love to myself. And so we get into this thing, well, you have to love yourself before you can love. No, because there's not two selves. Yeah. So when you are loving, then you are it. And you're never thinking, when you're it, you don't think, well, I need to give this to myself. I am it. That's why I'm sorry if I laugh, but I'm laughing at myself. I'm not laughing at anyone else. I'm kind of laughing at the the ludicrous idea that you need to love yourself. It's not possible. Okay, let's do it another way. You're a creator, and you think and you feel. And sometimes those thoughts and those feelings, they're not pretty. So one of the secrets is to make them prettier, is not to go, oh my God, I just created an unpretty, a negative thought or feeling. But the secret is, if you want to transform your own creation, the quality of your own creation, is to accept it as it is. Now, as you accept, not yourself, but what you've created, what's emanated from you, as you accept it for what it is, then you are, again, being love, because that's what acceptance is. It's love in action. When you're accepting, you're being love in your relationship to your creation. Yeah, and so you're all instantly raising your vibration. And if you keep doing that, then you'll stop creating. You'll stop allowing those negative or naughty, dark thoughts and feelings to arise in the first place. They'll just atrophy and they'll waste away. But what we do, what most of us do, is, oh my God, I'm negative thought. Oh, I shouldn't be negative. Oh, I mustn't do this and I mustn't do that. No, I wasn't that. Oh, I mustn't tell anyone I did that. And so we start just generating more of the same energy towards our own creation. So, I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to try and club two questions. I hope it's okay by them. So one is, I have no confidence being around people. I always seem to come last, judged, criticized, or not seen or heard. And the other question is, when people suddenly become distant and pull away for a reason, and we feel hurt, what is the best way to deal with this?
Okay, let me take the first question first of all. So there is it's pretty obvious that there's a need to understand myself, a lot better, I think, if I remember the first question rightly, and that means to really study, start studying, start exploring, who am I and what am I, and not what you've been taught to believe or what you see in the mirror in the morning, but what is thought and what is a feeling, and why am I thinking and feeling in this way? You start inquiring, and to help that inquiry is to find someone who will teach you to begin with, at least, and if you're near a meditation center anywhere, then you go along to the center and talk to people who have at least made part of this journey into themselves, and be advised, be guided by them to begin with, and they'll say what I've been kind of sharing with you, maybe not so deeply or differently. They'll guide you, they'll help you on the way, and so that, and they'll tell you the best things to study as well, to contemplate in the process. So it's like there's a little bit of help required, at least to begin with. Once you get started, then you can start moving along in your own steam. But once you lay those foundations, and in terms of confidence, the greatest fear for most people, and the number one in the league of fears of whether people are least confident, is in public speaking, is in communicating with other people, essentially, because we're worried what other people will think, what they will say in their minds about us. And so we want them to think well of us. And so there's a neediness there. So there's their neediness again. There's an addiction, a dependency on what others think of. Oh my God, I might mess it up. I might say the wrong thing and they'll think I'm terrible, or whatever. And so not the only way, but one of the ways to overcome this fear is to go through it. It's like speak to 2 people, speak to 4 people, speak to 40 people, speak to 400 people, slowly. And there's people who teach you how to do this in the universe. There's Toastmasters International, Young Farmers Association. You can go along to these organizations and you can learn little by little by little by little to communicate to other people in public. And very gradually you become more confident. Your fear begins to diminish. and begins to disappear, and your confidence and your ability to do that, and you don't care what people think. Everyone's making mistakes. We're all learning. We're all in the process, and so you don't care what people think about you. Less and less and less and less. It's never a kind of instant. It's going to be a process of exposing yourself to the circumstances that have been triggering your fear. It's like a phobia. If you've got a phobia about spiders, the way they help people overcome their phobia is you hold a picture of a spider and you're okay with that. Then you hold a plastic spider and then you're okay with that. Then you hold a dead spider and you're okay. Then you hold a live spider and you stroke it. And eventually the fear of spider, and you're quite confident with having a spider in your hand. So whatever you fear, go towards it and just do it as they say. That's all I can say, really, apart from that combined with this inner practice, which is useful to get help for. Arun, I'm sorry, I can't remember the second question. What was the second question?
Yeah, but you won't find me touching a spider.
Yes.
When people suddenly become distant and pull away for a reason,
Okay.
and we don't know and we feel hurt, what is the best way to deal with that?
Okay.
Can we
Well,
heal it energetically?
yeah. Okay. So this is the classic sign of dependency. You're dependent on their approval of you, and it might just be a look they give you. And if they give you the wrong kind of look, then suddenly you're devastated on the inside. You don't like what I'm doing, or they don't approve of me. They're not accepting me. So it's a form of rejection. And then what we do is we create this feeling on the inside of taking it personally, of being hurt personally. So that means I'm dependent on them, and that means I believe they're responsible for how I feel. So I've got to come down in the end. I've got to start my practice. I've got to wake up, in a sense. What I mentioned earlier is to realize it's not them that's making me feel hurt. It's what I'm doing with them in my consciousness that I'm using to make myself feel hurt. So to encapsulate it, it's not what you say or do to me that makes me feel this way. It's what I do with what you say or do to me that makes me feel this way. Yeah, and so I've got to come down and have this realization. And you only have this realization when you're prepared to sit quietly, whatever you call it, meditation, introspection, introversion, or whatever, and come into yourself and deepen your self-awareness of yourself, and notice how you are the creator of all your feelings at every moment, in every situation. That's easy to say, but not easy. I'm right with you. It's not easy to put into practice. And that's why I need someone to help me to begin with. You know, I need a guide, I need a facilitator, I need a teacher, or whatever you want to call them, who's going to be with me, to hold my hand as I deepen my self-awareness until I'm able to go there, until I've had a few, aha, now I get it, now I understand, till I've had a few more of those aha moments, and then I can walk back to that person who I was so sensitive with before. Don't say the wrong thing. Now I can be okay in that, and I'm solid in that. It doesn't matter what they say, what they do, it doesn't bother me. Yeah, it's their business. It's not my business. Yeah, it's the old saying, there's three kinds of business: my business, other people's business, and God's business. This business we spend the most of our life doing? Other people's business. So that we're so worried about what other people are doing and thinking and saying. And it's a waste of energy, because it's their business. That's their life, their story. They're getting to create it. So now let me get on and create mine. Next question.
How do you get free from anxiety and fear?
All fear comes from an attachment to something. It might be an object, a person, a place, a memory. Deepest level is usually a belief. Yeah, and this is why the fear arises. Whatever you're attached to in your consciousness. If you learn to meditate, if you learn to deepen your awareness, you'll notice how you get attached to ideas, to memories, to images of people, to ideas of how people should be. You get very attached to them. And then you build a sense of who you are. So you get very attached to that idea of who you are or who you should be in the eyes of others. So these are just images and ideas on the screen of your mind. It's like a television screen inside. And you create those images and then you get very attached to them. And then if you don't live up to that image, if you don't do, and people don't tell you, oh, you were so good according to that image, then you feel, oh, I was anxious and worried. Oh, I wonder, am I going to be able to do that again? Or I didn't like what they did. They shouldn't have done that. They should have done this, because you were attached to an image of them doing this and not that. And so wherever there's fear, anxiety, there's the fear that you will lose something. Anxiety is a form of fear. Anxiety is the fear of losing something. And so there's the fear of not living up to the idea of
Can
who
we
you
stop
are.
screen sharing, please?
Don't know who that is. Someone's having a little surf
Everyone
while we
pays
do
attention. Thank you.
this.
Pavitra. Mike, we can still hear you.
Okay. So the connection, if you can make the connection between wherever there's fear, anxiety, worry, tension, whatever form it takes, there's always something you're attached to. And only in your meditation will you see what that is. And when you see it, you naturally let go. This is why they say love is letting go. And so it's when you let go, when you are non-attached, when you have a relationship of non-attachment with something or someone, then it's possible for your consciousness not to fall into the vibration of fear, but to remain in a loving vibration. Fear is just love distorted by attachment. Yeah. And so whenever you're fearful, it's the same energy, it's your consciousness, that's where it begins, that's where it originates. It starts out as a loving vibration, but then if you're attached to something in the middle, in the way, to a person, an idea, an image, a belief, then it distorts that energy and it into a vibration of fear, and you feel that fear, first of all in your consciousness and then in your body. Yeah, and most people, they don't register it until it becomes somewhere physical, like worry in the stomach or tension in the shoulders or whatever. They don't register it until it becomes physical. So they think that these emotions are physical, but actually it has its origins in consciousness. And when you learn to meditate, you'll begin to understand. You'll see that, realize that, and understand that for yourself. But if you don't make that journey inside, whether you call it meditation or not, you won't see that. You won't see what it is you're attached to that is generating the fear.
Mike, okay, I will ask one last question, and then there are many. But what I thought is, if I forward them to you, you sometimes write the answers on your website, don't you?
I can do that, yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that for the remaining answers, and you can go to Mike George's website. But the last question, and we've had a few in a similar manner, there are many people living alone now during this pandemic, and the best way to deal with that.
Oh, okay. You mean, okay.
Well, they're living alone, not by
Okay.
choice, I guess.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how best to, help those locked down
Okay.
for themselves?
Well, that this comes back to this idea of security and love. That the ultimate form of security for a human being, for human consciousness, is to be in the state of love. It's a word for that high vibration again. And so when you're feeling insecure on your own, feeling lonely on your own, which is the same thing, insecure, then the quickest remedy, the fastest remedy, the most effective remedy is to reach out to someone and help them, guide them, be there for them, connect with them. In other words, express your highest vibration in relationship to someone else. And as you do, you might not notice at the time, but afterwards you'll notice that you felt great. And you didn't think about being on your own, being alone. Yeah, so reach out and do something loving for other people. And this is what we're kind of seeing now, is that people who kind of preferred to be on their own, they're reaching out because they realize that it's only when you do something loving towards another human being that you are bringing your highest energy to that relationship. And that highest energy is also, it is your form of inner security. Yeah, because when you're giving, you're not needing, you're not taking, you're not wanting, you're not dependent, you're not attached. You're just giving of your energy. And that's empowering for any human being to do that, to give of yourself. That's what it's designed to do. Remember, the energy into the body to maintain the health of the body, the right kind of energy, obviously, but the energy comes out from your consciousness towards others. Life is relationship, life is context. Yeah, but as soon as you want something from someone, you kind of already got it. Where? In your mind. And you're already attached to it. Oh, I want it, it's going to be mine. And then you're already creating fear and anxiety that it won't become a reality, or they'll take it away, or it'll become damaged, or whatever. And so now that's because you're taking. And that's to act against the natural flow of the energy of your consciousness. So that's what I would say. That would be the main thing, is to reach out and do something loving, virtuous, in the context of any relationship to anyone. You don't have to know them to help them. Shall we finish with a meditation?
Please, yes. Many are eager for the meditation.
Okay. Please, yes. That sounded like that's enough. Okay, so let's finish with a few guidelines as to how to meditate. And I would recommend that you don't look at the screen. Don't watch me as I'm doing this, because it just sort of the habit of looking and evaluating and judging and identifying sort of kicks into our consciousness when we watch a screen. So it's to find a place in front of you somewhere just to kind of rest your eyes. And you can close your eyes as well if you like, that's okay. And I'll do a very simple meditation. You can do this anywhere, anytime. And it just takes a few minutes. Don't do it in the car on the way home, but anywhere, anytime. And step number one is just to relax your body in the chair and find a position of comfort, not slouchy, but alert. And then bring your awareness to your breath and just focus your attention on your breath. And just gently watch your breath. The cycle of breathing is in and out. So just watch the full cycle. Don't force, just watch it. And as you watch, as you observe, you will feel even more relaxed. And bring your awareness to yourself, to your consciousness, and just see if you can be aware for a moment of yourself being aware. Just gently, just aware of yourself being aware. Sometimes people refer to consciousness itself as awareness itself, because that's what we are. We're aware beings. And within your consciousness, in your mind, just create one thought, one simple thought. I am a being of peace. Just allow that thought to move very slowly across the screen of your mind. I am a being of peace. And then let that thought fade away. Let it disappear into the background. And notice what remains. There's a feeling of peace, a feeling of calm. There's a quietness here within me. The odd thought arises, maybe the odd feeling comes, but they come and go. And I'm just resting enjoying this calm, this peace. Now the mind is silent at the heart of my being, silent and still. Silent and still. And in this stillness, I notice I also feel not just easy, but this is my natural state, the deepest form of relaxation on the inside, within me. Silent and still. Then I bring my awareness back out into the room around me. I'm going to bring that stillness, that peacefulness. I'm going to bring it with me. As I listen through these ears, I hear from that stillness. As I look through these eyes, I see from that stillness. And as I speak to those around me, my words arise with that stillness. And I can sense this is such a valuable contribution, my gift, my peace to the world around me. Thank you.
Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You broke the record
What did I?
for attendance.
Okay.
Your mic is off, Mike.
Is my mic?
Your mic is off.
Oh, it's not. Oh, yeah, you can hear
And
me?
thank you everyone for your comments. And they were also, some of them were revising your points. So there was really great enthusiasm on the chat group. And really best wishes to everyone, especially during these times.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike. We will have you again at a later point.
Okay.
And
Look forward.
lovely points, lovely sharing.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye from
Thank
Harmony
you. Thank you very
House.
much.
Thank you,
Bye.
Mike.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for the wonderful
Thank you,
session.
Mike.
A chorus of goodbye.
That was really, really great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Thank you.
Shanti.
Olivia, j'ai entendu ta voix.
Shanti.